Anytime you're talking rivalries, you're talking about a little extra in this game today.
Yeah, you're right. This is a great rivalry, and for some reason, somebody steps up or something happens in a rivalry game. Curious to see what that will be tonight.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of great players on the floor today with the Cougars and the Huskies. We concentrate on the forward position, really the key players for both these programs.
Yeah, both foremen for both the Huskies as well as the Cougars have had tremendous starts to the season, both of them juniors. Noah Dickerson for the Huskies is more of your traditional four-man, plays with his back to the basket, can score with either hand and on either block. He has had a sensational junior year for first-year coach Mike Hopkins, but for Ernie Kent and the Washington State Cougars, Robert Franks continues to emerge as a dominant force in the Pac-12. Scores it at about 18 points a game, but he can do it in so many different ways off the bounce, in transition, but maybe the best part of his game is shooting it from deep.
It's been a great rivalry through the years in Dickau. It starts because of great players.
Yeah, a lot of times you think UCLA and Arizona for pros in the Pac-12, but UW has had a bunch of them, as has the Cougars. Getting a look at some of them right there. Current world champion and all-star Klay Thompson. Brandon Roy was as good as they came before knee injuries. Isaiah Thomas, currently an all-star. #1 pick from a season ago, Markelle Fultz. But not only has there been great players, a lot of these great players in this rivalry become great coaches. Will Conroy, Curtis Allen both played at UW. Allen, an assistant with the Cougars. Bennie Seltzer was a great point guard under George Raveling and is now on Ernie Kent's staff. You can continue that trend. Assistant coach Ed Haskins there in the middle sitting down. His brother played under George Raveling here at Washington State, played in 2 NCAA tournaments. He was Jalen Noel, the leading scorer for the Huskies. High school coach a season ago at Garfield High School over in Seattle.
And
Daniels.
He's the difference maker, I think, for Washington.
I think he can be. Flat pass against the zone there by Daniels, and Thibault read it perfectly. He is a perfect complement to this 2-3 zone defense. His length, his anticipation, as he does it again with another deflection.
And you saw the anticipation there. Another tie-up, and this time that arrow favors Washington. And Thibault, you use the word anticipation.
Well, so much about being a great defender in the zone is anticipation and understanding of spacing and what the offense wants to do. Thibault has as good of anticipation skills as maybe anybody in the Pac-12. #4 in the country in steals.
Got to shoot that mid-range jumper off. He wasn't sure. You could see the doubt in his brain before he shot it.
Well, when you catch the ball in the mid-post against the zone, first thing you need to do is face the rim and then look opposite if the shot's not presented. That time he was a little hesitant letting it go.
As Thibault at the other end, nobody stood in front of him, and he hammered it home.
Well, nobody stood in front because nobody got back in transition. That is inexcusable, in particular after a free throw. I'm sure Ernie Kent is going to address that at the next time out, but Thibault getting the advance pass by Crisp and finishing over the top. Well, you got to get back on defense. Crisp with the nice throw-ahead pass, and then Thibault showing off a little bit of the athleticism. I'm sure that is a teaching point at halftime for the Cougars.
Are you surprised that Bernstein doesn't shoot it there, Dan, rather than move?
He's a guy that he doesn't want to score the ball, but when opportunities like that last possession present itself, he has to become a threat. His instinct is catch at the high post and look to find other guys, but because the Husky zone is taking away those perimeter shooters, he now must become a scoring threat.
Carlos just checking in. He's a sophomore out of Centralia, Illinois, but played at Findlay Prep in Las Vegas.
Findlay Prep, one of those powerhouse high schools, have had a number of great players through the years. Nigel Williams-Goss, who started at UW, was a big driving force at Gonzaga, making the title game last year. Anthony Bennett, who was the #1 pick after being at UNLV, actually played under Dave Rice, an assistant coach here with the Huskies. They've had a number of good players come through that program.
Greg Heister, Dan Dickau. The Cougars turned the ball over 14 times in that first half, and yet they still lead. But Matisse Thybulle was really pressuring the Cougars in that first half.
Yeah, he was. One of the reasons that Washington State had those 14 turnovers is because of how active Matisse Thybulle is in that zone. Here we get to take a look at how much range he can cover, getting in those passing lanes, igniting a fast break opportunity for himself, but he's done it in other ways too. Getting out in transition, finishing over the top when, quite frankly, no Cougar wanted to mess with it. But then this is where he's showing some improvement on the season, is the ability to attack off the bounce and finish in the half court.
I love Matisse Thybul's game, 11 points, but the Cougars, they did a good job attacking that zone at times.
Well, UW wants to take away the three-point opportunities for the Cougars, and that means there's going to be opportunities in that mid-post area.
Skaggs, that's a deep three.
I mean, he shot that from our broadcast table close to half court. The young man, he's not shy letting it go, that's for sure.
2 for 4 from deep is Carter Skaggs, and Washington State back on top by 3.
I guess when you're the son of a high school coach in Indiana, one thing you can do is shoot the ball from range. His dad is a high school coach, Logansport, Indiana. I mean, he is a good 10 feet behind the line. Coach Mike Hopkins for UW had a good comparison of his game, said he's a college version of Kyle Korver, and it's true. Good footwork, quick release, the ability to shoot it from deep.
And a chance for 3 for Robert Franks.
Well, I like what Ernie Kent is doing. He's trying to isolate Franks in that mid-post area against the zone where he can play one-on-one against Dickerson. Good initial defense by Dickerson. And then he stops sliding the feet. And Franks extends to a finish and finishes it off with a little flex.
Nevada marching along in Las Vegas, up 20, pummeling in-state rival UNLV. Here's a look at how it's transpired so far.
Well, both teams want to play up and down. Shakur Houston gets it going early for UNLV, but Caleb Martin has been spectacular. 14 points on the early going. Brandon McCoy doing what he does best, getting on the offensive glass, but Jordan Caroline has been a lot to handle for Nevada. And then get out in transition, find your shooters. Kendall Stevens, and then Caleb Martin adds one more for good measure.
Jong is in as a big, and he helps carve out space for Hardy to cut to the basket.
And then Mbake Jong didn't score on that possession, but he created an opportunity for Hardy simply because he posted hard. That's something that I would like to see Brandon McCoy do a little bit more.
And McCoy on the bench currently. Has he run into a bit of a wall as a freshman?
You know, I don't think so. He's been putting up some pretty good numbers as of late. There's still just an adjustment of going through a league schedule for a second time where teams really know your strengths and weaknesses. But right now, there are no weaknesses in Jordan Caroline's game. Step out 3 right there for the junior.
Wow, what a sell. Caleb Martin draws the infraction.
Sorry, John. You could say it was a little bit of a sell, but it was also great defense there by Caleb Martin. Get your chest in front, take the contact, and then sell it with the official right there in front of you on the baseline.
Can you coach that?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. You teach guys how to get their chest in front and fall in such a way where it doesn't look like a flop.